Hello everyone, and I want to welcome you all to part 8 of What If Ash won the Sinnoh League. But before we get into today's part, I want you guys to take a look at this stat bar above my head. You see that right there? That's the amount of people that aren't subscribed that are watching my content. So if you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss out. I have one announcement for the channel that I want to address here. After much thought and everything that's been happening with ShowPro over the last couple of months, I've decided that I'm just going to completely remove any and all anime footage entirely from the channel. I know it does kind of suck when I'm doing the What If Ash 1 series because a lot of the footage is basically me rewriting the episodes, but in the long run, it's going to help protect the channel because as my channel gets bigger, the target on the back of the channel gets bigger, and we don't want to get sniped by ShowPro. So, just to be safe, I'm going to eliminate any and all actual anime footage and just use stills from here on out. But that's not going to say it's going to affect the actual animations. I'll still be using animations from the game for the sprites of the Pokemon, so on, so forth. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's part. I hope you enjoy. Today, we're picking up with our heroes as they kill time by exploring the ruins that surround the small but fertile town of Machina. Ash and friends have a day till the next transport to the battle zone and the site of his next frontier challenge. Upon exploring the ruins of the Alpha Pokemon, while Brock, Ash, and Dawn marvel at its beauty, Dawn remarks about the ruins. I wonder who built these, she wonders out loud. I don't know, but whoever did wanted to make sure they didn't go anywhere, as they are really well preserved, Brock says. Then, from behind their line of sight, they were built by my ancestor, Damos. Looking around, our heroes spot two figures in the distance who come into view rather quick. Who are you? Ash questions. Oh, I'm sorry. How rude of us. My name is Sheena, and this is Kevin. We are the guardians of these ruins. Ash and the gang begin to introduce themselves, but are interrupted by a phenomenon that ascends from out of nowhere. A whirlpool of water vanishes into a vortex into the sky. Ash and Dawn order Piplup and Pikachu to stop the event with a thunderbolt and a bubble beam respectively, but the two are unable to protect themselves when they are also pulled into the maelstrom. It's at this point Ash, Dawn, and Brock witness something spectacular. Sheena calls forth the powerful ruler of time itself, Dialga, to save their partners and end the twirling terror. Meanwhile, from a distance, the leader of Team Galactic himself, Cyrus, and his ever-faithful lackey, Sharon, watch as the events unfold. This is the place, Master Cyrus. My readings indicate that the power you seek will emerge at this location, Sharon says. Are you certain? Cyrus replies sternly. Yes, the energy fluctuations are becoming more powerful. It's only a matter of time. With a sinister smile, perfect. Then we must prepare for its arrival. Start the Alpha protocols, Cyrus commands. Now we transcend to a place where no human has been before. A place at the center of creation. A creature of some sort seems to be at the center of a swirling mass of energy, and it's dreaming. No, having flashbacks of the time it put its trust in humans and was betrayed. With the flashback ending and this creature being attacked, it awakens after many thousands of years with the declaration that humanity will pay. Back with Ash and their new friends, they're being given the tour of the temple. Come to find out, Sheena is a direct descendant of the person who built the temple, Damos, but her family has a shaded history. Brock, with his never-dying reproductive drive, inquires why this is. Sheena leads the group to a room where there is a model that she explains represents the different dimensions: space, time, reverse, and Earth. But there is one more that is present that Dawn asks about. Sheena explains that this is the realm of the Alpha Pokemon, Arceus. She then goes on to explain that in the past, a meteor threatened Earth and all of life in creation. The Alpha Pokemon, known as Arceus, the creator of all things, would not let it end its most precious creation, life. So, it stopped the meteor, but at great cost to itself. Arceus was hurt, and it had lost all of the plates that gave it its power, the power of the universe. So if that's the case then, did Arceus? No, Sheena said. That's where my ancestor, Damos, comes in. Watching the events unfold, he located all of the lost plates and returned them to Arceus. Moved by the kindness of this one human, Arceus granted Damos one wish. In one last selfless act, Damos wished for the power to transform the land of Machina Town, so his people would no longer suffer. Arceus, acknowledging Damos, gave him control of 5 of its plates: the water, grass, ground, electricity, and dragon life plates. Together, these forces formed the Jewel of Life and brought fertile lands to the once barren barren Machina town. But when it came time to return that which didn't belong, Deimos betrayed Arceus, wanting to keep the Jewel of Life for himself. With the vicious attack exploiting the weaknesses Arceus gained due to not having specific elements, Deimos and his followers nearly ended Arceus, but it was able to escape, retreating to its home dimension, where it could slumber and heal from its wounds. Revealing the Jewel of Life, Sheena tells of her urge to right this wrong, saying that when Arceus emerges, which will be very soon, she will return the Jewel of Life and end the Armageddon that the world is facing. While all of that is being explained, above the group, Cyrus and Sharon listen in. "So, you are after the Pokemon called Arceus, are you, Master?" Sharon requires. "No," Cyrus remarks. "I want something much more powerful," as the two prepare for the next phase of their plan. Over with the group, the time-space axis starts to go haywire. "It's time," Sheena says. "Arceus is coming." The group rushes outside. It's time to meet the King of Kings. The rage Arceus shows knows no bounds, attacking once it emerges. But its onslaught is temporarily halted by a familiar scenario as a memory captures his attention. But when Arceus regains his mental faculties, it realizes that it's not Deimos, but Sheena who has greeted it. Sheena introduces herself, telling Arceus that she knows what happened, and she says she is sorry, presenting it with the Jewel of Life to right the wrong of her ancestor. However, Arceus knows this to be a forgery, smashing the fake jewel in front of everyone. Confused and out of options, Sheena tries to reach Arceus, only to fail as its rage is too great. All out of options and with another assault coming their way, the group begins to lose hope. Until the deities of time and space emerge to defend our heroes. Dialga, Palkia, they have sided with the humans, enraging Arceus further. Unfortunately, the two are unable to match their creator in power and are quickly sidelined. With nothing else to lose, Ash orders Pikachu to use Thunderbolt. This does something, but it is quickly overwhelmed by an attack from Arceus. Luckily, Giratina enters the fray, siding with the humans as well. Furious that its own creations would stand against it, Arceus launches an all-out attack on everyone, looking to level the earth in the process. But this attack is what Cyrus was waiting for. Using a drone, armed with the dimension tech they pillaged from the ship of Zero, it absorbs the attack of Arceus, making their presence known to everyone. "Got it," Sharon says, as the drone joins them next to Cyrus. Ash and the group, knowing full well who this is, demand to know what Cyrus is doing here. Then Brock clues in. "They're after the power of Arceus," he yells, laughing maniacally. "No, you foolish boy. I want a power that is greater than this trivial excuse for a god. I want the power that created it." Enraged by this remark, Arceus fires another attack, only for it to be absorbed by the drone once more. "That's it, Master Cyrus. We now have the exact location of its dimension, the one of creation." Smiling because now, after all this time, Cyrus has what he wanted, he turns back to the group as he begins to open a portal. At that exact time, Arceus fires another attack, aimed for those humans, while Dialga realizes that there's only one chance to fix this, in the past. So it fires its own attack to open up a time-space distortion. The three beams collide, all at the same point. But what is created isn't the portal Cyrus or Dialga had intended. It's something much more unstable, a time distortion field. Charon, realizing what it is, tells Cyrus they must retreat. They have the data they came for. Cyrus is unhappy with this, because as far as he's concerned, he's waited far too long. Ash, Dawn, Sheena, and Brock are also within the area of the distortion field trying to escape. But then, flashes start to happen. First Sheena disappears, then Dawn, then Cyrus, followed by Brock. Ash, looking on at his friends, begins to panic as they all vanish. It is at this point Arceus fires another attack at the distortion field. In a flash of light, Pikachu, Ash, and Spiritom's keystone are enveloped in it, as the world they know fades from existence. Ash looks back to see his friends being pulled through the time stream. One by one, they begin to vanish, leaving only Pikachu and the keystone. This only lasts for a moment though, as they are pulled away as well. First, Ash loses his grip on the keystone, dropping it in the time stream. Then, Pikachu flashes away, leaving only Ash desperately trying to find a way out of the situation. Before he knows it, everything fades to black, as Ash loses consciousness. Ash eventually awakens, but he finds himself alone. Pikachu and Spiritom's keystone is nowhere to be found. To make it worse, the area Ash is in is very unfamiliar. It seems like he may know this place, but things are not right. There are no modern buildings anywhere in sight, almost like Ash isn't even in Sinnoh anymore. To gain his bearings, Ash calls on Staraptor by sending it out of its Pokeball, but as he releases it, nothing happens. The ball won't open, like it doesn't have the power to operate. Even pushing the button in the middle does nothing. Unsure of what to do, and with no other options, Ash begins to make his way, setting out in a direction he hopes has any sign of life. After a while of walking, nothing has changed. Ash begins to think to himself, this land, it's very untamed, like it's untouched by human hands. Looking around, Ash notices something off in the distance. Another person maybe, Ash thinks? He runs, calling to the shadow figure, but what Ash is met with is a sight that he's never seen before. A Pokemon. Is that a Steelix? Ash thinks to himself, but this is no ordinary Steelix. It's a a size far beyond any other Ash has ever seen before. Not to mention, the aggression of this Pokemon is far greater than Ash has ever experienced from any wild Pokemon. The wild monster attacks, holding nothing back. Ash does what he can to dodge the Iron Tails that have been hurled his way, but the sheer size of the Steel Snake makes it hard to avoid. Ash finds himself backed into a corner, staring down his impending doom. There is a tight spot with only inches to spare. As Steelix fires the next Iron Tail, Ash jumps to avoid, narrowly missing him with the Iron Tail slamming into the rocks that had Ash boxed in, forcing it to crumble to stone. Ash, looking at the stones, notices something. Is that? It is. It's Spiritom's keystone. Ash rushes past another Iron Tail and grabs the keystone, thinking, how did it get sealed in that rock wall? But he has no time to think about that now. He needs to lose this Steelix. With no other choice, Ash begins to run, hoping to outmaneuver it. But Ash is tired. The wilds of this land take a toll on the unprepared. Just when Ash can't run anymore, another problem presents itself. Before him is a building-size Rhyperior, just as angry as the Steelix. The Rhyperior begins to attack. Ash, fatigued, has no other options but to turn foot and run the way he came. His plan is simple. Let the two kaiju-sized Pokemon fight it out. Hopefully, they will lose interest in him. Luckily, the one time actually thought things out works in his favor, allowing him to escape as the two Titans battle it out over territory. Ash eventually makes his way to a cave, just in the nick of time. As the sun is setting, and in this harsh, unfamiliar land, the last thing Ash needs to do is be out in the open once night falls. Once inside, Ash sets the keystone down, thinking about his next move. Again, trying his Pokeball that Infernape is in, hoping to at least get a fire going, but he is unsuccessful. Beginning to get flustered, Ash decides to try to get some sleep, as it's really his only option. After a while, Ash finally manages to fall asleep, but the unforgiving weather outside of the cave has dropped the temperature to near freezing, and Ash is beginning to shake, but he is still asleep. This prompts a reaction from the keystone to where Spiritomb emerges for the first time in many years. Now you may ask, Ronan, why are you saying years? Well, it's because when Ash was separated from everyone in the time stream, Spiritomb was sent back farther than Ash, back to a point that it got sealed in the rock side when the harsh weather of the region caused a mudslide that trapped the keystone. For Ash, they were only separated for a few hours, but Spiritomb, it was years, and all it could do was wait. Now, here it is, staring down the same trainer that it had thought abandoned it. But no, even though Spiritomb had become a recluse, Ash still cares for it. Plus, the pesky electric mouse was nowhere near, so maybe this time it could help this human. A few more hours pass, and it is now the coldest part of the night, but the cave is not freezing, with Ash waking up to a fire going, and it's been burning for a while. The cave is at least 80 degrees to where the outside is clearly frozen over. Looking around, Ash sees firewood and what looks like some berries that have been laid out for him. Wondering who could have done this, Ash then begins to put two and two together when he remembers his Pokeballs won't work. Looking at the keystone, Ash thanks Spiritomb as he finishes the meal and fades back to sleep. This prompts a slight glow from the ghost type as the night fades on. In the morning, when it is warm enough outside to move, Ash gathers what supplies he can and heads out with the keystone in hand. After a while, he happens upon a sight he thought he would never see. It seems someone had lit a fire off in the distance. Hoping it's one of his friends, Ash runs to greet them, but it's not what he was expecting. Instead, he is met with an older woman, someone who looks remarkably familiar to someone Ash knows, but he can't put his finger on it. But his thoughts are interrupted when the woman addresses him. Boy, if you're looking for your father, he already left on the task I paid him for. Boy? Father? Task? These are all things that run through Ash's head. Sorry, I think you may have me confused with someone else, he says. My dad doesn't live in Sinnoh. Sinnoh? What's this Sinnoh you speak of? This land here is called Hisui, not Sinnoh. Now even more confused, Ash begins to formulate a question, but is again interrupted by the old woman when she realizes what he's carrying. The keystone. Don't tell me your brain-dead father forgot the keystone I gave him for the task, she yells. Ash is now just trying to get some sort of words out, but is unable to when the old woman pushes him off in the direction that his father went, telling him that it's urgent that he get that keystone to him now. Unable to process what's going on, Ash walks in the direction he was pointed, with the old woman stating he's just as dense as his old man, and he was dressed awfully funny as well. Now off the beaten path, Ash has no idea what he's looking for. The one person he met since the battle of the ruins of the Alpha Pokemon, and they were totally nuts. And this place is called Hisui? What was that about? Man, people in this part of Sinnoh are weird, Ash thinks to himself, but his thoughts are interrupted when off in the distance, a loud crash can be heard. Then, a sparking electricity shoots into the sky. I would know that anywhere. That's a Volt Tackle. Ash begins to run in that direction, excited, thinking that he may have finally found his buddy. Once Ash arrives at the site of the electric attack, it is indeed a Pikachu Pikachu, and it's engaged with another of those absurdly large, overly aggressive Pokemon. Ash calls to Pikachu, but he is interrupted by someone giving it a command of a Volt Tackle, which Pikachu responds. This one was enough to send the oversized Staraptor packing. Ash rushes to Pikachu, happy to see a starter, but as Ash gets closer, a look of pure confusion befalls Pikachu's face as it looks back at its trainer. Next to Ash stands a man that looks just like him, but an older version of him. Now officially freaked out, Ash begins to panic, ordering Pikachu to use a Thunderbolt. Confused, Pikachu doesn't respond. It just looks on in disbelief as this seemingly older version of Ash stares at his younger counterpart. Your name wouldn't have to be Ash Ketchum, would it? The old man asks, surprising Ash even further. Yes, it is. Why do you look like me? He says. Well, this is quite an interesting development, the old man says. Listen, we need to talk. There's a lot I have to fill you in on, but we can't stay out in the open. Ash just nods as he follows the duo off to some sort of lodging. They finally end up in what seems to be a campsite of some sort. Ash can't hold it anymore, hitting his doppelganger with every question in the book. Okay, slow down there, the older Ash says. Let's start with the obvious. Yes, my name is Ash Ketchum, and you are not dreaming. We are the same person. I'm just older. But how, the younger Ash says. Well, that's the real question. But let's start at the beginning of my story. I was challenging the Sinnoh League with my partner Pikachu. Yeah, I was doing the same, the younger Ash says. So, it seems we share the same history. Well, I had just finished up my battle with Paul at Lake Acuity, and then me, Brock, and Don were headed to Sunnyshore's City for my 8th badge. The older Ash then pulls out his 7 very faded Sinnoh Gym badges. But we got wrapped up in events with Team Galactic on Mount Coronet. Something happened, and when Cyrus opened his portal, I got pulled in with Pikachu, but we got separated when we were in that strange portal. It must have been a time-space distortion. That's how I got here. But it was when we were battling a Pokemon called Arceus at this place called the Ruins of the Alpha Pokemon. Really, the older Ash says? Yeah, I was in the middle of challenging the Sinnoh Battle Frontier when it happened. Sinnoh Battle Frontier? Wow, I wonder what else is different on our journey, the older Ash says. Anyway, the older Ash goes on to say that he's been here for 10 years. Oh, and by the way, in this time, this place is not called Sinnoh. The very sparse population refers to this land as Hisui. Really, the younger Ash says? I wonder why. Well, from what I've been able to gather, the dominant clans of the region, the Diamond and Pearl clans, call it that. And the word Sinnoh refers to their ruling deity. But what they worship, I don't know, as they are very secretive to outsiders, the older Ash says. The young Ash then starts up with the questions. That Pokemon that you were battling when I found you, it was so big and aggressive. I've never seen anything like that. Yes, neither had I before I came here, the older Ash says. But they appear to be a dominant member of their species. The Alpha, if you will. And they don't take too kindly to humans in their territory. That explains why I was attacked. I tried to use my other Pokemon, but my Pokeballs won't respond, the younger Ash says. They won't, the old Ash says, pulling out his 6 rusted Pokeballs. I've been unable to release any of my Pokemon since I've been trapped in this time. But the day Pikachu and I were reunited, I knew there was hope. I waited 6 long years to see my old friend again. Then, one day, there it was, appearing out of nowhere. At first, Pikachu didn't recognize me because I was older, but we were able to quickly fix that, and we've been together ever since. So, this is your Pikachu, the younger Ash questions? Yes, without a doubt, the old Ash responds. Getting emotional? I hope I find my Pikachu someday. Well, if I can see mine, I'm sure you will, the older Ash says. Well, at least I still have one of my Pokemon. As Ash pulls out the keystone, this is it. That is your Pokemon, the older Ash says. Yes, but it rarely comes out of the keystone, the young Ash says, as Pikachu comes over to smell the keystone, with its ears stiffening. The older Ash sees this, but says nothing, as he changes the subject, pulling a keystone out of his own. I have one of those too. Mine is empty at the moment, he says. Really, the young Ash questions? Why is that? Well, from what I can gather, in this time, they were a form of primitive Pokeball, used to bind Pokemon that people fear. I was charged with taking down one of those alpha Pokemon that keeps attacking anything it can, both people and Pokemon. Oh, that explains the old lady that thought I was your son. She saw my keystone and told me to take it to you. That's how I ended up finding you. So, she thought I was your dad. That's hilarious, the older Ash says. Well, I guess since you're here, you can help me and Pikachu with our tasks tomorrow. I have an idea where the den is for this alpha. Really, Ash says? Well, with nothing else to do, the young Ash agrees, as it is now nightfall, and he can't exactly go anywhere without having help. So, the group settles in, waiting for dawn. Once the night reaches its peak and the fire has died down, things are quiet. The older Ash can't sleep. Thinking about what the arrival of this other meme means, it is at this point he notices that Pikachu has begun to cuddle with the younger version of himself. Thoughts begin to rush through his mind, but he just turns over to try to go to sleep again. At the crack of dawn, old Ash is up, readying for the day of hunting. Waking up Pikachu, he tells it to be quiet, not wanting to wake his younger self. But this is to no avail, as Ash was already awake, as he spent the night clutching his keystone, as it's the only thing he still has from the life he's left behind. Older Ash tells him that it's time that they set out, trying to play play off the situation like it's nothing of importance. This does work, as young Ash has spent the night coming to terms with that he may never see his friends or home again. So, with light now moving into the sky, the duo set off. It takes a few hours, and a couple of close calls with some alpha Pokemon of the region. It's here where young Ash learns that this Pikachu knows a new style of attacks. It's still the basic moveset that his has, but its execution of the attacks. Older Ash calls them strong style and agile style. Each have their benefits and weaknesses, but the point is that it allows diversity in the way you can use the moves, which is important here in Hisui. Impressed, Ash hopes to get the chance to teach this to his Pokemon someday, but they have no time to wonder about that, as they are losing daylight, so they move on. After some more time passing, the travelers find themselves in an area that seems familiar to young Ash. He can't put his finger on it, but it's like this place. He's been here before. Then they see what they've come for. Their prize, an alpha Pokemon. It's a Spiritomb, but without a keystone. It seems to be minding its own business though. Young Ash questions old Ash. Are you sure this is right? This Pokemon doesn't seem to be a threat. Well, the description I was given is of a purple, spectral Pokemon, and I remember battling one of these when I was traveling in my Sinnoh journey. It was highly aggressive when me and Dawn freed it by accident. Yeah, we did the same thing, Ash says. But you resealed it? Yes. The Spiritomb was very aggressive, destroying everything in sight, old Ash says. Yeah, it was the same for me too. But what, old Ash says? Well, this one doesn't seem to be doing anything. So, did you ever think that maybe we caught it in between its rampages? Maybe, but I think we should wait and see, young Ash says. Listen, I've been here far longer than you have. You can't just wait and see. This land, Hisui, is unforgiving. It won't wait and see. We have to act before it does, or we won't get another chance. Do you understand me? Young Ash wants to question this, but isn't given the chance, as old Ash orders a strong style Volt Tackle. The electric mouse rushes in, surging with electricity. It collides with the unsuspecting Alpha, retreating once it connects. From the smoke, the Alpha Spiritomb fires a Hyper Beam agile style. Pikachu does manage to dodge, but it is then hit with a Dark Pulse, forcing the mouse back. Old Ash, knowing that they need to get serious, orders an Iron Tail. Pikachu connects, forcing the Ghost type down, then follows with an agile style Thunderbolt that hits in succession. All the while, young Ash is watching this go on. He's becoming more and more uncomfortable with the situation. They just attack Spiritomb, so at this point, it's just self-defense. Ash's emotions are starting to run wild, and his keystone is reacting. His Spiritomb can feel Ash's emotions. Ash pleads with his older self to stop, but he just pushes the young one to the ground. Listen, it's either them or us. Make your choice. Meanwhile, Pikachu can see this and stops its assault. This gives Spiritomb a bit of a break, but only for a second, as old Ash orders Pikachu back on the attack with the Volt Tackle that connects, weakening Spiritomb further and causing a paralysis. Now that it's unable to move, old Ash orders one last strong style Volt Tackle from Pikachu. The Thunder Rodent bolts towards its prey, but in its path stands young Ash. Pikachu, stop, he yells. The mouse puts on the brakes, halting inches from Ash's feet. What are you doing? That monster is our enemy, a danger to all. You're the only danger here, young Ash says, shocking the older one. What happened to you? To me, I would have never attacked a Pokemon that couldn't defend itself, let alone intend to cause them pain. This Pokemon did nothing, and you refuse to accept that. The older Ash laughs at his counterpart naivety. I told you, it's them or us. Don't you remember when you battled this thing in the future? We were barely able to beat it. It attacked everything that moved. It took everything we had to reseal it, old Ash says. No, that's what you went through, young Ash says. I didn't reseal it. I instead decided to catch it, to become its friend. What the older one blurts out. Yes, and as I've been trying to tell you, Spiritomb was wrongly accused. Not once after I captured it did it attack anyone. Yes, it had a problem with my Pikachu, but never anything malicious, mainly due to the history it had with Pikachu. I see now that it was me and Pikachu who sealed it, but the cycle ends here. We never should have done this. We imprisoned an innocent Pokemon, costing it the freedom it desired. That's why Spiritomb was hostile in my time. Still laughing, old Ash tells young Ash that he has no idea what he's talking about. But if he sides with the danger, then he is now the enemy. Last chance. Move, or Pikachu will move you. The mouse is looking torn between the two sides, but young Ash stands firm. I won't move. He won't let his older self continue this unnecessary cycle. Old Ash gives the order for a Volt Tackle on the young Ash. However, before it can start, Ash's keystone reacts and Spiritomb emerges from it. Great. Now there's two to deal with. Why didn't you tell me that keystone housed a Spiritomb? Ash's Spiritomb looks at its counterpart, who is in distress. It remembers this scene when it was sealed. This angers the Spiritomb, and it cries, ready an attack of its own. But it sees the young Ash, the human who has been by its side since it was released. It actually hasn't caused any harm to it. Though it felt like it was locked away when it was sent to Professor Oak's, Ash still came back for it. And now, here it is defending its younger self, trying to end this sense of cycle. Spiritomb, I won't let this person cause any harm to either of you. It looks into Ash's eyes. What he speaks is genuine. After a moment of contemplating, Spiritomb powers down the attack, but it moves in front of Ash, ready to defend its trainer. Spiritomb, you want to battle with me? Young Ash says. It nods, ready to defend Ash from any threat. threat. Well, I guess I'll have to see you both then, old Ash says, ordering a volt tackle. But Pikachu doesn't respond. It refuses to attack. Till this moment, it wasn't sure which Ash was its trainer. But when Spiritomb emerged, it confirmed young Ash is the true trainer, as it has memories of Spiritomb. Pikachu sides with the young Ash, making any threat older Ash makes a mute point. Realizing he's lost, old Ash relents. Fine, have it your way, he says. What happened to you, young Ash says. When did you become so callous to the world? The time I've spent in this place, without the support of my friends or family. It can change a person, old Ash says. When Pikachu fell through the sky to me, I thought for a brief moment that I could have my old life back. But I knew from the moment I saw it that it wasn't my Pikachu, and it was confirmed last night when I saw its reaction to you. I was foolish to think that I could hide that from you, or Pikachu, but now I'm alone again. Maybe not, Ash says. It's subtle, but I can still feel the old you in there. You just need to find it, and if you do, then you won't be alone anymore. As the young Ash looks at the paralyzed Spiritomb, give them a chance. You'll be surprised what you'll find. Smiling, maybe someday, old Ash says, with a slight hint of envy in his voice. So, what will you do now, old Ash says? Well, I need to find my friends, young Ash says. The last time I saw them, they had disappeared into a space-time distortion. So, I guess I need to find one of those. Well, you may be in luck, old Ash says. I've heard stories that they appear at the summit of Mount Coronet, near the Spear Pillar. Really? Well, I guess that's my next stop. Looking at both Pikachu and Spiritomb, Ash asks if they're ready to go find their friends. Pikachu nods, but Spiritomb hesitates for a moment. But it nods its head, as Ash has finally reached it with its selfish actions in this event. The three then set off, as old Ash and the young Spiritomb look to each other, wondering what they should do next. After a few days and some close calls, Ash and his Pokemon find themselves at the summit of Mount Coronet. Cold snow blankets the mountainside. Ash looks around, but there is nothing here. Beginning to lose hope, and with his body shutting down due to the cold, Ash starts to slow. Spiritomb and Pikachu can see this. Spiritomb can sense something ahead. It urges Pikachu and Ash to follow it through the snow. They do, and over the ridge, they can see what they came for. Space-time distortions. Many of them. Which one do we use, Ash says. But Spiritomb is urging them to follow. It seems to know something that they don't. Ash has nothing else to go on, so he and Pikachu do. Eventually, they come to a distortion field at the center of all the others. Spiritomb is signaling to this one. Are you sure? Ash asks. It nods, jumping into the time stream. With no other options, Ash and Pikachu jump in as well, following Spiritomb to their next destination. While in the time stream, Ash tells Spiritomb that he's sorry. If he would have known that he was the one who sealed it in the past, he would have never done it. The life that it lost, Ash could never replace. But as its trainer, Ash vows to do whatever he can to make it up to it. Spiritomb says nothing at this, but signals they are about to reach the point that they have to exit the time stream. In a flash, they arrive at the temple of the Alpha Pokemon, but it is clear that they are not in their time, as the temple is like new, maybe a few years old at most. Ash looks around, lost in the sight of the magnificence before him. However, there is no time for this. Ash and his Pokemon are flanked by the guards of the temple. Spiritomb and Pikachu want to fight, but Ash tells them to stand down. He wants no harm to come to them. This results in him and his two Pokemon being separated. Spiritomb and Pikachu end up in the dungeon with the other Pokemon that appear to belong to the one who rules these lands, while Ash is put in a cell. Luckily, the ones he came to rescue, Dawn and Brock, are here, but they are not alone. Sheena is here with two men, the one called Damos, Sheena's ancestor, and another red-haired man who calls himself Marcus. Marcus is distanced from the group, upset because he is imprisoned. After Ash and his friends catch up, it appears that even though it was days for Ash, for his friends, it was only hours. The time they have been apart has been moments, but that's the best news, as the one they were after, Cyrus, is here in the past as well. Ash wants to know where. Why isn't he in the cell with them? They have to warn the one in charge. Well, that's the problem, Ash, Sheena says. The one called Cyrus is the one in charge. What, Ash questions? This is where Marcus speaks up. I was in charge, but he showed up 6 months ago and forced me out of power. Then Damos adds his perspective, saying that Marcus intended to overthrow Damos and is just upset that he didn't get the chance. But the issue at hand is tonight the moon is supposed to cover the sun, and we are supposed to return the Jewel of Life to Arceus. Well, we need to get out of here, Ash says. We need to get to Pikachu and Spiritomb. Wait, Pikachu and Spiritomb brought questions? Ash begins to explain the events that unfolded for him. Now following up with Cyrus and his new role as the ruler of Machina, he looks to the sky. Soon, I will have the power I seek, he thinks to himself. Though my portal generator was damaged, I was able to fix it with this primitive technology, though it took longer than I would have liked. But tonight, when Arceus emerges to reclaim what belongs to it, I will claim my birthright, the power of creation. Then the chief of guards comes in. Master Cyrus, another outsider, arrived moments ago. He was dressed like the others. "Oh, and what have you done with them?" Cyrus asks. "We sent them to the dungeons." "Good," Cyrus says. "Keep them there. I can't have any interference in the events of tonight," as Cyrus looks back to the sky. Over in the Pokemon dungeon, Pikachu and Spiritomb have met up with Piplup. The friends are happy to see each other, even if Piplup is a little uneasy with Spiritomb around. But Pikachu vouches for it. It is at this point the trio meet a new friend, a Pichu that has made its way through the dungeons, trying to find something. It talks with Pikachu, who agrees to help Pichu find what it is looking for. Luckily, Spiritomb can adjust its size to fit in the small tunnels that have been dug out by the Pichu. So, the four make their way out of the dungeon in search of their trainers. Back with Ash and the gang, he finishes the story. Then Damos stands up. "It's clear we need to get out of here." "Well, how are we going to do that?" Sheena asks. "Oh, I have friends too," he says, as a rock pops and Pichu with the key to the door comes out. It is followed by Pikachu, Piplup, and Spiritomb. All the trainers and Pokemon are happy to see each other, but their time is short. The eclipse is set to begin, and Arceus is set to arrive any moment. The new team rush into action as the sky darkens. Arceus has arrived, but it is greeted by someone who is unknown to it. Arceus questions where Damos is. Cyrus tells him that Damos intended to betray Arceus. "But I, Cyrus, am your humble servant. Please follow me inside, and I will return the Jewel of Life to you." Arceus, with no other reason but to believe Cyrus, follows him inside, where Cyrus presents Arceus with the Jewel of Life. Unfortunately, it is a fake, and it gives Cyrus enough time to enact his plan, attacking the Alpha Pokemon, with everything that Arceus is weak against due to it losing certain plates. It is at this point that Cyrus pulls out his Dimension Portal device and starts it. The device begins to glow, and starts absorbing energy from Arceus. "Yes, that's it. Take its power. Once you are full, I can access the dimension of creation, and that power will be mine." This is the point when Ash and his friends catch up to the events. Cyrus is now holding the real Jewel of Life, as he is using it as a power source for his device. Damos tells them that they need to stop this. Dawn says that she and Piplup will deal with the Pokemon guards, while Sheena and Damos try to reach Arceus. Ash, Pikachu, and Spiritomb will get the Jewel of Life from Cyrus. The team then split up. Ash and his Mons arrive at Cyrus, with Dawn in tow with Brock. They begin to deal with Cyrus's bodyguards, while Ash and his Pokemon confront Cyrus. "Stop hurting Arceus," Ash demands, as he orders an agile-style quick attack. This is fast enough to knock the Jewel of Life out of Cyrus's hands. The jewel falls to the pit below. Ash, not thinking, dives for the jewel as Pikachu and Spiritomb follow. Ash is able to secure the jewel, but is still falling. Luckily, Spiritomb is able to catch Ash before he hits the bottom. It is at this point that he realizes things are dire, as Arceus is completely sealed in the metal that is hardening. Cyrus, looking down, curses Ash, but his machine has somewhat of a charge. Deciding to risk it, Cyrus turns on the machine, opens a portal, and jumps into an unknown fate that awaits him. Back with Ash, he sees Sheena and Damos trying to reach Arceus, but they are unable to. Ash then makes his decision. He treks through the liquid metal, burning himself in the process to get the jewel back to Arceus. It's the only thing that can save it. With the help of Spiritomb blasting through the metal, Ash gets the jewel to Arceus. At first, there is no reaction. Ash starts to shed tears, pleading with Arceus to wake up. Finally, the jewel begins to react, separating back to the individual plates. They then absorb back into Arceus, awakening it, but the rage in it hasn't subsided. The Alpha Pokemon thrashes about, endangering Ash and his Pokemon. Sheena and Damos then try once again to reach it as it rages about. This time, their resolve is hardened after watching Ash do what he could to save Arceus. They inch closer and closer to Arceus, nearly reaching it, when a time portal opens up. It begins to pull all of the time travelers into it, leaving Damos to subdue Arceus by himself. Ash and his Pokemon are in the middle of dodging Arceus, but Ash gets caught in a direct line of energy blasts. If it hits, Ash could be erased. Seeing this, an unlikely hero steps in. Spiritomb pushes Ash out of the way, firing a Dark Pulse back at the attack, but this came at a cost. Spiritomb is now out of range of the portal as it closes, with Ash yelling for his Pokemon. Back in the present time, the team arrives back to the rampaging Arceus. Ash has tears in his eyes at the loss of Spiritomb, but he has little time to mourn. As it appears, Damos was unable to save Arceus. The Alpha Pokemon prepares its final assault when it is stopped mid-attack. Things begin to change. The timeline is correcting itself. Damos was able to get through to Arceus as it remembers the new events and the people who saved it, including Ash. The temple begins to shift, repairing itself. Charon, realizing that his master failed in the past, makes his escape, unsure of what to do next. The then damaged creation trio joins their master in the sky, as its rage has subsided and they have begun to heal by the change of history. With the threat subdued, Palkia, Dialga, and Giratina return to their respective dimensions. Arceus thanks Ash and his friends for their efforts in rectifying things before preparing to leave, but Ash stops it. "Arceus, can you tell me what happened to Spiritomb?" The Titan is silent for a moment. "That I cannot say, Ash. When the timeline was set right, I left to return to my home dimension to rest for my injuries. That was the last time I saw your Pokemon." Well, is there a way I can go back, Ash says. I'm sorry, Ash. I can't allow that. Any more changes in the timeline could unravel reality as we know it. Things have to stay as they are. I see, Ash says. Well, what about Cyrus? What happened to him? Oh, don't worry about that, Arceus says. He got what he wanted in the end. Ash hangs his head, saddened for his friend that he gave itself to protect him. Arceus then says its goodbyes as it heads off into the new world before it. With nothing left to do, Ash and his friends prepare to set off, but are stopped when Kevin tells everyone to look at this. The group looks at a carving that wasn't there before. It's from Damos, Sheena says. It's a thank you for our help, and that he hopes what they leave behind is a future that is bright, with endless possibilities. Then Sheena pauses. Ash, there's something here about Spiritomb. It says, to the human that lost their magical creature, know that it lived a life worth living. It stayed as the guardian of this temple and land, protecting us from any threat that dare present itself. This brings a smile to Ash's face. At least he knows that Spiritomb had a good life. Then Kevin, now with his memories of the corrected timeline, says, wait, Ash, follow me. As he leads the group back down to the room where the time-space axis is, there's one additional pedestal beside it. Ash runs, as he can't believe it. Spiritomb's keystone. There it is. There's a plaque here, Sheena says. She begins to translate it. Here sits the guardian of the temple, forever waiting for the human that called it its friend. Ash calls to the keystone, but there is no response. Eventually, Brock says that it must have moved on at some point. The keystone appears to be inert. Saddened again, but glad that Spiritomb did get to live a full life, the group turns to leave. But purple glow envelops the room, and Spiritomb emerges from the stone. Ash, happy to see his old friend, rushes it, but the ghost is unresponsive, just looking at Ash. It is at this point Spiritomb rushes Ash. Pikachu, thinking it's attacking, readies a volt tackle, but it's not needed, as Spiritomb just smothers Ash, happy to see his very old friend for the first time in many centuries. Ash pulls out Spiritomb's Pokeball. So what do you say? Would you like to rejoin me on my journey? It looks at the ball, then Ash. With no hesitation, it nods, and Ash returns it, happy that he got his friend back. With that, Ash and the group say goodbye to Sheena and Kevin as they head to the port and board the boat, bound for the next battle facility, the Battle Tower. Now, we travel back to the past as Cyrus arrives in the dimension of Arceus. Finally, everything I've wanted in the palm of my hand as the energy of this place flows around him. But this moment of glory is interrupted by a blinding light. As the ruler of this dimension, Arceus appears before him. Human, why have you gone through such great lengths to get to this place? Arceus questions. It's simple, Cyrus responds. I seek a world of my own, a world with no strife, famine, war, a world that is perfect. With the power here, I can create that world. Silence befalls the two. Then, with one last breath, if that is what you seek, then let me show you what it is, Arceus says, as its eyes begin to glow, pulling in Cyrus. And that, my friends, is where we're going to be leaving this part. And that's all we have for What If Ash Won the Sinnoh League Part 8. How'd you guys feel about this part? Did you guys like the way I rolled in the Hisui side of Sinnoh with the events that happened in Arceus and the Jewel of Life? Do you feel that I did it justice in rewriting this part for the actual series? How do you feel about how I resolved the issue with Spiritomb and Ash and the introduction of a different Ash from a different timeline in the past? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, to sign off the video in the best way we know how, we got to thank the sponsors of the videos, the patrons. Silver Heart Soul, thank you. Robert, thank you. Vegito Gaming 78, thank you. Andrew McCartney, thank you. Holosiv, thank you. Julian Rodriguez, thank you. Ruben Watson, thank you. Lord Explosion Murder, thank you. Flyer 943, thank you. Shadow Dragon, thank you. Tavern Landlord, thank you. K McKnight, thank you. Kevin Atran, thank you. Maker YAG, thank you. Drax, thank you. Luke Franciscos, thank you. Dylan Silva, thank you. Fox King, thank you. Dalian Poteet, thank you. Warren E. Taylor, thank you. Plus Ultraman, thank you. And Megar, thank you. And thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.